Hotep, peace. Konnichiwa, muy bien. Um, what we're going to be talking about is the current situation. There have been multiple people injured and shots fired in a South Carolina mall. They do have a suspect in custody. Also, what we're going to be talking about is the Negro Act of 1740 and the Sundry Act of 1790 between the Moors and the United States. This is a treaty that was a friendship treaty between the Moors. Um, and the reason for the treaty is because under the Negro Act of 1740, blacks and slaves were subject to being, slavery. They were subject to imprisonment. They were subject to slavery. They were subject to a host of things. And what the Moors did in 1790, 40 years later, after the Negro Act of 1740, is 50 years later, they established a treaty with themselves in America and the Sultan of Morocco. And in this treaty that was established, basically what they're saying is they are not subject to being penalized or punished based upon the laws of the United States, that because they are of Morocco, they are not subjugated to being treated like the normal black people here are property or slaves. So what they did was distinguish themselves differently from those, even though they are the same color as the people that may have been enslaved or may be have been imprisoned. What they were doing was, distinguishing themselves and distinguishing a difference between them and those that are property. Okay. So what there's, what this act of 1790 is basically showing it and like I said, they it was four of them. They petitioned the court um, because they were being, persecuted and being treated as a slave, as property, as cattle. So basically, what they were doing was, with this Sundry Act of 1790, was saying, look, I'm not anybody's property. I'm not a slave. I'm not cattle. I am a Moor, and I am a representative of Morocco. Okay. So, this is a very interesting treaty that was established between the Moors. Um, and like I said, it's a treaty that was established between want to be tried as citizens, under the Negro Act. So basically what they're saying is they are not Negro, they are not black, they are Moors. And as Moors, who are representatives of Morocco, they are not subjugated to being persecuted, and they are not subjugated to being criminalized like the average, ordinary, everyday citizen. So, this is very, very important for us to comprehend and understand. Now, another thing about the state of South Carolina um, is they have recently, in the last 6 months, they have re-implemented the firing squad, and there is a man of color. His last name happens to be Moore, and he has been forced to choose between the firing squad or the electric chair. And another thing about the state of South Carolina, also, South Carolina has been very influential in the division of the United States. It is also known for performing the youngest execution in the United States of America. So South Carolina has a very, very extensive history. It is also known for being the first state one of the first states to implement mm, uh, members of color into congressional office. Now, shortly after the implementation of the members of color into congressional office, there was said that the Treasury was being plundered. So, as a result of that, there was a removal um, of those members, and it just left a dark relationship when it comes down to legislation and to the legalities. So I think it is very important for us to understand how influential and how instrumental South Carolina has been in the division and in the igniting of the Civil War. So, as I stated, there have been shots fired inside of a Columbiana mall. And when we talk about mass shootings, we want to also talk about and remember Dylan Roof going inside of a church here in the state of South Carolina and going inside the church, pretending as if he wanted to congregate and he wanted to pray and fellowship with members of the church. And one of those members of the church just happens to be a member of congressional office. So Reverend Pinckney was killed in this church in South Carolina. And the church that he was killed in is one of the eldest churches in the state of South Carolina. So let's keep that also in mind. And let's keep in mind that Dylan Roof shot and killed a political official. Okay. He shot and killed a political official. And one of the reasons why he was killed is because he was fighting to remove the Confederate flag. He was fighting for the removal of the Confederate flag off of the state capitol. Okay, so now there has been a shooting in the state capitol mall in Columbiana, and in 1790, America establishes a treaty between the Moors that they may not have been keeping up with. So now that they have forced this black man whose last name just happens to be Moore. Now we're talking about the Sundry Act of 1790 versus the Negro Act of 1740, and in 1790 the Moors make a clear distinction between themselves and others who are subject to slavery. Now in 2022, we have a brother who, by the name of last name is Moore, he has been forced to choose between between the firing squad and the electric chair. He now has chosen the firing squad. Okay. Within the last 72 hours, he has chosen to take the firing squad. So South Carolina has been known for having for the youngest execution, and he was a young man of color as well, the youngest execution ever in the United States of America. And now they're getting ready to enforce the death penalty by firing squad on a man whose last name just happens to be Moore. He is black, and and it's obvious that they are not upholding the friendship treaty that was established between themselves and Morocco. So we don't know if anyone is dead currently, but there have been several people injured. Several people have been shot inside a Columbiana Mall in the state capital, and we are waiting for more reports. With that being said, Hotep.